Now we're gonna talk about how to start in game UX. We have two wonderful panelists, and we're gonna do like a more a fireside. Grace and Pat, and we're gonna talk about Grace and Pat are both new in the industry or still trying to find their way, and so I thought it would be interesting to listen to what how they got in and what were their hurdles and how they could overcome challenges and give their insight to everyone. So again, if you want to ask questions, please use the Q&A section, and if you can just maybe say the panel you're talking about, Grace and Pat, or start in game UX. So it's much easier for me to spot the questions that are for this panel more specifically. And what we're going to do first is let Grace and Pat respectively to introduce themselves. And I'm just going to take this slide out so that we can see the faces more.
Cool. Hi,
Do you want to
everyone.
start,
Thank you so
Grace?
much. Oh, yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I actually started my full-time role at Electronic Arts this Monday, and I previously interned there for the last 6 months. But in the past, my education background's actually in bioengineering and computer science and engineering. I've been doing game design casually for fun, making a VR game, and last summer, I actually interned at Intuitive Surgical, designing and developing virtual reality games to train surgeons to do surgery. But right now, I'm working at EA. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Pat?
Hey, I'm Pat Dimaandal, and I'm actually unemployed, but I'm a UX designer and also an author of an upcoming science fiction novel. I recently graduated in May 2020 from the University of California, Merced with a degree in cognitive science, and I was previously an intern for UX is Fine, which is a really great studio that helped other game studios with their overall UX. And UX is Fine. I got into that because I have a mentor over there named Jason Scheckler, and he invited me over there. So I'm going to share a little bit about that story too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. I know it's always difficult to talk about your career as you're trying to figure it out. So I really appreciate your time, and I think you had a lot of good advice to give to all the people in the audience today. So what do you say were the hurdles that you encountered when you were beginning your career and trying to find your path? Because you might not know immediately where you want to go in the game industry, and how to get there, and how did that work, and how did you shape your path through this complexity?
Yeah, growing up, I've loved games. In fact, I was really obsessed with Maple Story. I was like max level in that game, led one of the top guilds on my server. So it taught me a lot of leadership skills. So I was this random 14-year-old girl bossing a bunch of 29-year-old dudes around. And so that was my first experience in games and like the culture behind it. And I dreamed of becoming a game designer or an anime artist or someone who just entertains people. I wasn't really into school. None of that math and science stuff really struck a chord with me. However, growing up in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, a lot of the kids and teachers always thought that the only way to be successful is to become doctor, engineer, lawyer. And so and so in college, I also ran cross country and track. So I was really interested in like biohacking myself too. So I actually majored in bioengineering and had a goal of becoming a neurosurgeon. And then I later, after doing like a few internships in that field, I realized that wasn't the path I wanted to take, because after working in a research lab, I realized I was just looking forward to go home and play games and draw, and I wasn't really enjoying the work I was doing. So I did that for 2 years, and I decided to not rage quit, but my professor let me quit because he noticed like I would get really excited when I talk about games and like not so excited about the cells I was working with. It was really hard to quit. Like my professor let me quit, so he gave me permission to quit, and that was like my cue to quit. And then a virtual reality lab opened up at my school, and I went to Santa Clara University in the Bay Area for my undergrad. And so this was like year 2018, and this virtual reality lab opened up. However, I knew I wanted to do something in games with VR, and It was hard because I didn't have any mentors, any support growing up, or like in games, because there's not professors that like not any like class that can like teach that. So I basically relied on a lot of YouTube tutorials. I found this YouTube tutorial called Virtus Learning Hub and also Extra Credits, and that helps me learn about game UX and how to use tools like Unreal, and learning Maya. I had this group of friends in the lab. We were just like learning tutorials and helping each other up and teaching each other game design and VR, and building stuff together. So we'll stay in a lab till like 3 a.m., work on projects outside of class, and it was super fun. So I feel like what helped me get through the challenges of learning games is just like finding online tutorials. Like there's so much out there, but also finding a community that can support you and that can help answer any questions and everything too. And that's how I got onto games. But in the beginning, it was super hard because I feel like as a game designer, I have to know like Unreal, Unity, all these like technical things. But day by day and with the community support, I was able to get into it. And slowly I became to move towards that field, interning last year at Tudor Surgical, designing games to train surgeons. And now I'm at EA. So it's been super fun. And I graduated my undergrad last year and then actually started grad school studying computer science and engineering end of 2019. And so now I'm a part-time student working full-time at EA.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing this. Pat?
So for me, I didn't know what UX was until 2 years ago.
You're
It's
not
a
alone. Even in
yeah,
the
that's
game
why
industry, sometimes people don't know what that is.
yeah, and I wanted to share that because no matter where you are, you can go into the UX industry um, at any point in time, irregardless if you're been in marketing for a really long time and you suddenly found out about it, you can enter into the industry irregardless of your background because having a different background is so useful for improving the UX industry overall. So I just wanted to say that with that little disclaimer. But I found out about UX design when I decided to intern abroad in Singapore. And I interned at a little startup called Telepod, which was for e-scooter sharing services. And that was my first exposure to UX. And I basically, since it was a startup environment, it was very fast-paced learning and lots of reading about Don Norman's work and how he hates doors. And I really fell in love with it because I was like, whoa, I am a cognitive science student. I didn't know what the heck I was going to do with my degree. I just know it's really cool. And I think I found a really cool thing I want to go into. So ever since that internship, I learned on my own through the Interaction Design Foundation on UX and just like how it influences so many pieces of design and how it strives to solve problems, like human problems. And for me personally, I'm a little bit of an entrepreneur. So I really want to solve problems. So that's what really drew me to UX. And for me personally, I really fell in love with the game industry at a very young age, similar to Grace, except instead of MapleStory, it was Mabinogi, which is a really funny like comparison to make. But just that community of games made me really so happy when I was young. And I want to enter the game industry because it made me so happy. And I saw that there are problems in our industry that we need to solve. And we always need fresh eyes to look at these problems. So honestly, for juniors out there, I really encourage you to look at those problems that you do see in the game industry and try to solve it for yourself. Because one, that's a portfolio piece. Two, you're also contributing to a really wonderful community. So I just wanted to say that. But that's kind of like how my journey started in games UX with trying to figure out what to do with my degree, trying to figure out what to do with this club that I founded at my university because there was not a game development club at my university, so I founded it. And yeah, I'm just like combining all of my interests. And to be honest, finding these paths really relies on knowing who you are as a person and just going with your gut because sometimes the industry that you will go into is not even discovered yet. Like VR and augmented reality, they're still starting too. So just follow your gut, and honestly, you'll be fine in your career.
Beautiful. We can stop right there. I'm joking. So what to get to where you are today, or in a certain way, to push forward to where you want to go, what are the biggest hurdles that you have encountered and you're still encountering to get there? By hurdles, I mean, is it regarding resources, regarding finding mentors, or anything else? Like finding a job, or how do you overcome all these obstacles?
Yeah, I actually had a lot of obstacles. So after graduating last year, I had no idea what I'd want to do with my life. And I thought I wanted to do a PhD in human computer interaction. So this was mid 2019. However, my GRE score was probably too low to get me into any school. So I was like, IDK. And I decided to, because both my parents have PhDs. And since I was 4, they're like, you're going to get a PhD too. So I thought that was just like something I had to do. And so I just stayed at the same school as I was at. And I didn't really vibe or didn't really like feel like enjoy what I was studying. It was computer science. I enjoyed CS because I want to develop games, but however, after actually making a game, making several games, my favorite process was level design and UX. So that's how I decided to kind of focus on that path instead of the development side. And when I started grad school, September 2019, I had this professor, and I was like a grader for him, and he was like, so what are you doing? Like, what do you want to do now? Like, I noticed you switched from bioengineering to computer engineering. Why is that? And I was like, yeah, I want to do design, but I'm not too sure. And he was like, stay in your lane, you should do bioengineering. That's what your degree is in, like really discouraging me and comparing me to his daughter who started design earlier. So I felt a lot of imposter syndrome and that I started too late and just like not supported by professors that I had previously looked up to. And then, so I didn't have any mentors in school because there wasn't any design degree program at my school. It was mostly engineering and business. So I tried to turn to the internet to make some friends. However, in the design communities I was in particularly, I've encountered some people who made me feel like imposter, like I was like a beginner asking some questions, but they made me feel like I don't belong there because I don't have a design degree. I'm an engineer. And so I felt really just like out of place. And so that kind of led to design buddies. I just wanted to make some design friends during the pandemic. And then I created design buddies in April. I actually invited Celia on for a talk a few weeks ago and inviting her on again next week. And since April, we've grown to over 12,000 members, a Discord server, April 2020. So that's how I overcame it, by finding a community that can uplift each other. And I founded Design Buddies just because I realized that a lot of people felt the same way. Like they felt intimidated in other design communities and judged for asking questions. So really, I really am passionate about community building and games and how they kind of foster community, and that kind of drives my interest today.
Yeah, and good job with design buddies. It's pretty amazing to get that many people in such a short time. Like I'm like,
Thank
whoa,
you.
that's pretty cool.
Thank
Just
you.
before I let you answer, Pat, I just want to bounce on what you were saying earlier about your professor, because it makes me think of something. Sometimes I have a lot of students asking me, how did you get in the game industry, and asking me some advices for themselves. And that's actually the reason why I wanted to have you talk about your experiences today, because the problem is that my advice might actually be off. So I'm not saying this is what happened with your professor, but sometimes I'm reluctant to say something, or I might give an advice based on my own experience, but things have changed today. So it's very delicate, I think, because I graduated a long time ago and things are so different today, then it's really difficult to give good advice when things have changed so much. So that's, be careful with that, because a lot of people, I see that you're trying to get some insights from people who are really in a very different situation and a little bit of a different role today. So I just wanted to add on that.
Mhm.
Pat?
So for me, the obstacles that I faced was just that there were a lack of people that I personally knew, but around last year that are involved with games UX. I know it existed at the time, but I didn't really know like how do you get into it? What exactly is the work involved with it? So that's why I really thought out to have a mentorship with GUXS. And they're actually restarting and revamping their whole mentorship program for the spring. I'm very excited about that. But I had a mentorship with Jason at UX is Fine, and by having that whole network and with GUXS and having a mentor I really learned a lot more. So this is actually related to an article that I wrote for on Gama Sutra. It's called "This is Fine 2020: Networking into the Game Industry as a New Grad." As I wanted to give that article to anyone else who is also starting out like me and wants to find opportunities for themselves. So one of the first tips was just to find a network, like how Grace found Design Buddies. Just find a network at your own choosing and really connect with people that are really experienced in your field and just talk to them as human beings. Not just for like, oh, I want a job, but more like, oh, what's it like working at this company? How did you get started? Just really getting to know people will help you jumpstart and help you better understand why you want to go into this industry. And that's what mainly helped me a lot about overcoming like this lack of guidance, because my university doesn't have a specific facet for a user experience. I'm going to learn all of that outside of my university. I'm going to learn all about games outside of my university. So networking and just really connecting people really helped got me where I am today. It even got me an internship too. So just really network and try to get to know people. That's like my main advice for getting over those obstacles, especially if you feel like there's no clarity in getting into that point. Just ask and you shall receive, basically. And if you do want to connect with people, I highly recommend Twitter. That's actually how I met Celia. And it was a really funny moment because she made, she was involved with VTech, and I grew up with VTech. So that's how we connected. So you might not know it yet.
I'm sorry. Declining the responsibility.
But there's really funny ways of networking. And honestly, I hate that stereotype of networking where it has to be like cold or something, but no, it could just be completely random. You can even do horizontal networking where you're just connected with a fellow student or something, just sharing your story like this. So network, just please network.
I like how making
is there something
friends.
that oh sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. What are you saying?
Oh, I like to say it's like making friends, like networking.
Mhm.
I call it making friends.
Is there something when we're trying both of you when we are trying to network? Was there a moment when it was difficult, and how did you overcome problems? Because I had a lot of people like they tell me, "Oh, thanks for answering. I didn't think you would answer." And like, so of course, yeah, I'm busy, so sometimes I don't see
Mhm.
people poking me. But were there some things that you had to overcome to either get to network more efficiently or to connect with people more efficiently? Is it the platform? Is it the manner? Is it how you go about it?
Yeah, I was so intimidated of networking. I didn't really like make my first networking call until like this March of this year. Because before I was like, I'm just a small potato student, like who wants to talk to me and stuff. Yeah, so that's how I felt before. And for me, I grew up as like an introvert. I was like scared of people, and so I started just like hosting random meetups online, and that helps get over my fear. And as I do it more, I get like more used to it. And yeah, for networking, I like to treat it just like a friend. Fun fact, I actually got my internship originally at EA without applying. It was through networking. So a piece of advice I like to give in networking is also what I heard from Felix from ADP List is if you ask for a job, you get advice. If you ask for advice, you get a job. And so I really took that to heart, and I just asked people for advice. Like how is I like connecting with interesting like people who seemed interesting to talk to via LinkedIn at that time. However, I feel like Pat mentioned Twitter, and I feel like as I'm like relatively new to Twitter, but I feel like Twitter is great because people are more casual on there. And LinkedIn, sometimes people don't check it. But I personally reached out to people on LinkedIn, looked up their titles and stuff, and I would just ask them about like how they got into that field, find things in common, bounce commonalities off each other, make a friend, and talk. And then they ask me about me, and I talk like emphasize the things they have in common, and then yeah, now like even though sometimes like they became like long-term mentors, I can reach out to them if I need help on like my portfolio review, negotiation, anything like that as well. So like even though not every connection will lead to a job, you also like make a friend and you can help each other out. And another thing I like to do is make it like non-transactional. So if I like ask the professional about their story, ask for advice, I always make sure to ask how I can help them out as well. It usually throws them off, but sometimes they just want a way to give back. And so that's how I invite them to, they want like be a mentor. And that's how like Design Buddies mentorship program ultimately started, because when I was networking, people wanted to be mentors. And I was like, okay, I'll just start a mentorship program and stuff. And then sometimes they want me to like review their design. So I do that as well. But I always ask how I can help out after networking, and to continue that relationship and check in every few months just to update how I'm doing. If I get a job, I send an email, like I send like a LinkedIn message thanking them for their time and their advice and updating them how it's going. So it just comes down to like being a friend and also asking how you can help out too, and making like an equal relationship.
I pretty much agree with all of that, but I'm going to share a little bit of how I started with networking. There was a specific entrepreneur I wanted to contact, and I have never talked to her before, but I wanted to specifically talk to her because when she's Filipina, she's also LGBT like me. She basically graduated and made a whole passion planner business out of it. And I wanted to talk to her about entrepreneurship. So I first did a lot of research on her, mostly because I didn't want to repeat questions that the professional may have answered before. I wanted to make it really engaging because one, when you network, they probably answered the question time and time again, over and over again. So I like to keep it interesting for people. So I made sure to research, make sure to really understand, like, okay, what advice should I ask that she has not answered before in an interview or some outside resource? Because one, this is my personal philosophy. I hate wasting time because you can never get your own time back. I can't get my own time back. Once you use that time, it's done. You can never get it back. Money, you can get it back, but time, no. Um, so really understand who you're contacting. Two, I would say like this is a little background about me, but I used to be selectively mute. So the fact that I can talk to a lot of people online is really surreal and amazing to me. If my parents would be watching this, they're like, whoa, they're actually talking. But I was selectively mute. And if you're someone that really has a hard time talking to people, email is a great choice. DMing is a great choice. Have a friend look over your message before you send it, and have that friend like encourage you to keep going. Because taking that first step can be really scary. And that's okay. That just means that you're going to grow. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters. And this is a general tip. If don't say no for yourself, let someone else say no for you so that you can still get opportunities in your life. So just try it out. You never know what happens. For one, I never thought I would talk at Game UX Summit if I didn't ask Celia to be part of this, be part of Design Buddies for a talk. Because me and Grace, we're actually both part of Design Buddies. I'm one of the book club leaders, and Grace founded the whole thing. So we are actually working together. So we're buddies.
Super nice. You were mentioning mentors before, and so I would be interested to know from your point of view, Grace and Pat, what makes a good mentor, so that the people who are mentoring today can actually be better mentors, and also what would be your advice for junior people, like what they need to seek in a mentor to find a good mentor for them?
Great question. I had a collection of both good and probably not so great mentors, not taking on the character as a person, but just like as a mentor. I feel like a mentor should be somewhere around just where you aspire to be in industry. Kind of just like for me, I have like a senior designer who's a mentor. I also have a senior recruiter who's a mentor who helped me really develop my networking skills and my negotiation skills. And he actually got me to cold DM people on LinkedIn. He guided me through like what exactly to say, how to structure my calls, and really helpful. So I feel like a good mentor gives a lot of actionable advice, not just like, oh, you can do it, or like, I don't know. I, rem- if a mentor doesn't know, like they'll try to find resources that would help as well. And a good mentor is also responsive. But I feel like a mentorship relationship should be equal. Like the mentee should be the one reaching out to the mentors, organizing the calls, setting goals, and the mentor should just be there to support, answer questions, or fill in any gaps. And a good mentor is just basically someone you aspire to be, not too high up, not like a VP, well maybe a VP, but generally someone that can relate to you and that's not too much older, that can relate to your experiences, so it can give you like actionable advice. And also the mentee should be the one guiding, and the mentee, I feel like, so for me, I see myself as like both a mentor and a mentee. I take on a lot of calls from LinkedIn, and the number one pet peeve I have is people ask like really Googleable questions like what is UX, and I would highly recommend, like, as a mentee, not ask Googleable questions, or do like take time, at least 10 minutes, to like look through the mentor's profile to ask questions. And the mentor should just be able to be knowledgeable enough to be able to provide them with answers, but also some like actionable tips they should have, and probably be in regular contact, probably like once a month, once a week. It just depends. It really depends on the mentee. But the mentee should be the one setting the tone and setting the goals and everything.
Great advice.
Okay, so for mentors, I would say to choose a really good mentor, you have to make sure that they are going to be an active participant. Because one, being in a mentorship relationship can be a lot on the mentor themselves, because I was talking to someone from Riot Games, and oftentimes they're not compensated for spending time to invest in junior game dev people. And it really sucks, because one, we really need to invest in the juniors so that they can go to mid levels eventually and then really make this industry grow. But they just, so overall, they just need to be active participants, and then also that they have enough time. This is relating to the article I wrote, but one of the things that both me and the whole organization notice is that it's important to have time for the mentee, for the intern, so that they can properly learn and grow, and to make sure that the time is spent well too. We don't, it's somewhat transactional, but it's to help both of each other. Because I was actually the first intern UX is fine ever had, so I really wanted to make my mark and to make sure that they get something out of this too. So in that case, I made sure that I addressed what do I want to get out of this specific mentorship internship. I made sure to outline my specific goals. So in this case, my specific goals were to really understand, like, what is UX like in a business versus the textbook. I really wanted to understand the differences, because that's something you can't get in a class. So I wanted to experience that for myself. What's the overall business side? During UX is fine, I dealt with NDAs for the first time. And I was like, oh, okay. I've heard memes about NDAs. I'm like, oh, they can't credit them for some reason and all that. But why were NDAs there in the first place? So I asked about that, and I learned that NDAs are actually there to also protect the people that are working on the game and the company themselves. So I better understood NDAs, and that's something I can't get in a classroom setting. So getting so being able to learn something from your mentor that isn't related to a classroom is one of the best things you can get out of a mentorship. Two, personality really matters a lot. If you can get along as people and as friends, you're probably going to have a really long time mentorship relationship for a long period of time, and that's really important, because mentorship, it's not constant. It often usually is like you talking to them 3 months ahead of time. I actually low key have I chat with Trinidad Hermida from Niantic, and we just talk about like the game industry. I only talk to her like a few month periods at a time, just because we're both busy people, and she really showed me like how the game industry is changing for those who are minorities, and how can I continue growing and be like a role model for potential minorities entering the industry too, because I really believe that all of our perspectives are so important for this industry. So making sure to research about them, understand, look into like your specific goals in mind, like why do you want to go into the games industry? It's really important for mentorship relationships and just respecting their time too, because they are volunteering their time. They're not being paid. Really respect that and just treat them as really cool people because they honestly are one of the coolest people I ever met.
Man, the time goes super fast. Grace, did you want to walk us through your demo reel and explain a little bit what you learned from that? If you could just try to take 2 minutes only for that, so that we can maybe answer a few questions. And if you have questions in the meantime, please ask them in the Q&A, and
Yeah.
then we'll answer a few questions.
We can actually use this time to answer any questions. I can just link it in the chat. It's just like the first game I made. And I talk about like what I learned along the way. But we can take time to like answer questions instead. I'll just link it in the chat.
Sweet. In the meantime, Pat, do you want to maybe explain a little bit what you're looking for today and what you're hoping for moving forward?
Ooh. This is okay. So I'm currently an unemployed UX designer. So for me, I want to continue developing my portfolio. I'm currently making a little project called Game Match where it matches juniors together so that they can make games because I noticed that problem where mid-levels and higher ups are having a hard time basically investing in juniors. So I'm like, you know what? Since I'm not employed, I might as well try to solve a problem that already exists in the game dev space and see what I can do about it. Because one, that's an opportunity for myself, and two, I can help my fellow juniors that I'm paving the way for. I want to give back to that community, and I want to make sure that people who are entering the industry are basically set in a better standing than I am today. Because I don't think we need a gatekeeper industry. I don't, it doesn't need to be there. I don't see any reason for it to be there. If anything, the games industry would benefit from it a lot. So I am really just pursuing projects that I'm just like, okay, I want to solve this problem. I'll see what happens. And maybe it'll bring an opportunity for me. And that'd be really cool. Because I love to find opportunities and job opportunities for myself through like my own initial interest. So, for example, I actually helped Celia out with ethical games because I'm really passionate about the ethical choices in game design and just how we can navigate that because it's not something discussed often, so I really wanted to help out with that. And through that, I really got to know Celia and just working on that whole thing. And it was just a really cool experience. But also, she paid me as a freelancer too. And that taught me a lot about like being a freelancer in this space too. So really, thank you for that.
No, no, no,
And
no, no. Hang on. Like you're doing this wrong, Pat. I'm sorry. You should not thank someone for paying you for the work you're doing. Okay, folks. So if you have an expertise, okay, even if you're young, you if someone is asking you to do something, you should be paid for it. Okay, unless it's really your passion and you're doing that on the side, like Grace is doing with Design Buddies. Get paid for what you're doing, and you don't have to thank me for that. It's normal, right?
yeah, I just
um,
can't help it. So
yeah,
that's
yeah,
just
but you try. You need to get to it because it's really important to remember that.
Mhm.
yeah.
So Grace, you were saying you're not going to show the demo reel. I thought you were about to show and then answer questions, and you're not. You're
Oh,
only going to do
yeah.
that in the chat. Okay, I
Yeah, I
just want to
thought
make
it was
sure.
a little off topic. Yeah.
Okay, okay, sounds good. I just wanted to make sure because I was a bit off as well. Are there questions in the Q&A that you wanted to answer? I didn't spot any specific question for this panel, or maybe
I saw one. I upvoted it. It was something about like dividing. Yeah, with network. This is from Corinna Rad. With networking, presenting yourself publicly online, how do you handle the struggle between privacy and showing yourself? Like, where do you use your real names because you want people to recognize you, and how do you make sure to be safe?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Great question. Um, I normally use my real name in most places, so depends. I kind of just like go by gut feeling. Like Design Buddies, I use my real name, but in other Discord servers, I just have Grace without last name. On LinkedIn, it's my real name. All my social media, it's my real name. It's just some Discord servers where just like probably a game server. In a more casual server, I don't use. I sometimes I use Candy Leaf, which is like my gamer tag, my artist name. So I use that. So yeah, it also really depends on personal preference. Like in Design Buddies, sometimes people don't use their real name, and that's totally fine as well. Um, so really depends on personal preference, but that's how I personally handle the balance. If somebody is being weird, if I don't, my gut feeling says they're weird, then I block them. And yeah, you don't owe anybody an answer. Someone asks you a weird question, you don't have to answer it. There's a block option, and my block list is pretty long, and that is okay too. So block and yeah, really just like suss out or just like go by gut feeling.
This is an interesting question because I'm also a streamer and a content creator. So I divide that life up with being a UX designer, presenting myself with my real name, because I just really want to divide it up so that I can interact with this audience like in a different way, in a more casual setting versus my publicly presenting my real self as a professional, because I don't want that connection personally, but I just really choose it based on what are my goals as a person. So for example, for my streaming, I want to present myself as a more casual setting, but also be able to like maybe curse or just really show off my opinion, but for entertainment value. That's when I don't show my real name. But I don't mind the connection as long as just like it's just really complicated in general. But for streaming, basically, if it's something like opinion based, and I feel like it could be like a hot take or something, I'm just like, it's just an opinion for this persona, this version of me specifically. It's not something I want to bring into work.
Mm.
If it's something I don't mind bringing into work, then I don't mind putting my real name on it. Basically, it's just dividing your personal self and your private self.
Yeah.
The same thing. But for me personally, it's kind of it is very difficult because I'm generally a serious person. So figuring out what is my personal versus my private, it is hard, and you have to really ask yourself and like think about it for at least for me a really long time. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add to that. I mean, to me, it feels more comfortable if someone reaches out to me and that's their real name, because I don't know who this person is, so it's just to me I feel safer discussing with someone if I know who that person is and why that person is poking me to get some advice. So on my end, if it's just for networking, in a professional situation, yeah, I would recommend to use your real name. All right. We already need to wrap it up. Really quickly, like each of you, can you just tell me what you're maybe a bit worried about in this industry, or in what you're excited about in this industry for the next years to come?
Yeah, I'm really
We'll
excited
start with
about.
what you're worried about, so we can end up with a with a more optimistic.
Yeah, I personally haven't. I just like sometimes like online communities and like especially game communities, like Maple Story in the community, like it can be pretty toxic, and I just feel like cyberbullying with the amount of people like being online and just like interacting more online. There's just like more places where people can like cyberbully each other. But I also see like communities are can be like mostly positive, sometimes negative in that way, but I'm really excited about like the rise of esports and just like seeing that as like an actual sport and like having that more recognized as like a sport like in par with actual sports, and the rise of just like technology and games online, especially this pandemic really accelerated all the changes to everything being online. And for me, I'm an extrovert, but I don't enjoy leaving my house. I realize it's like so much more convenient, so I'm really excited that more and more things and meetups like this are online personally.
For me, I'm really excited about accessibility. Like I was selected by Able Gamers Charity to be a DPAT initiate, and I'm going to go through that whole program. So I'm just really excited that hey, I'm actually going to do something really cool and help people and really just share games with a bigger group of people. So that's one of the things I'm really excited for. Um, so yeah, that's one of the main things.
Awesome. Well, let's finish on that because it's a beautiful way to finish it. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. It was really interesting for me to see how the young generation get in there. I hope that was useful for the folks listening. Feel free to answer, of course, in the chat and the Q&A questions that were not answered. And thank you very, very much for your time. It was really, really nice of you to come over. Thanks,
Yeah,
Grace.
thank you so much for
Thanks,
having
Pat.
me on. I'll try to answer as many questions as I can in the chat. I'll stay on.
Yeah,
So yeah,
thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Yeah.